Imagine stepping into, say, a busy government office. But instead of those usual struggles, maybe steep stairs, you find wide, inviting ramps.
Hmm.
Elevators announce each floor, clearly. Signs guide you with both sight and touch, and doors just glide open. It sounds almost futuristic, but this isn't just a dream, is it? It's actually happening across India now.
It really is. It's a fascinating shift.
So today, we're taking a deep dive into India's, well, really groundbreaking push for these truly inclusive public spaces. We want to explore how the nation is fundamentally rethinking its built environment.
Yeah, making sure no one gets left behind, especially people with disabilities.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack the what, the why, and the how of this whole transformation. We'll look at the journey so far, the ambitious road ahead.
To uncover the specific directives, the human stories behind them.
Right, and the challenges, but also the triumphs on this path to accessibility for everyone. Get ready for, hopefully, some eye-opening insights. It might just change how you see the world around you.
It's definitely a pivotal moment, and what's really driving this fresh wave of action is happening literally right now, August 2025. There's a powerful new directive out from the Central Public Works Department, the CPWD.
CPWD, okay.
Yeah, telling all its units across the country to fully equip their buildings with facilities for persons with disabilities or PWDs. And it's not just a suggestion, it's a clear mandate.
A mandate. Okay,
Yeah.
so it feels like this didn't just appear out of thin air. What's really galvanized this specific push right now?
Exactly, you're right. This CPWD directive, it comes hot on the heels of the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, the CCPD stepping in. And they did it on their own initiative, what's called suo motu cognizance. Basically, they took notice and acted proactively without waiting for a formal complaint.
That sounds significant, taking action themselves.
It is. It signals a powerful shift towards proactive enforcement. They saw the gaps in public infrastructure and just stepped in. It's a big deal.
That proactive approach really does sound like a potential game changer. And are the courts involved too? Is there legal pressure building?
Absolutely. Just last week, in fact, a court took a really hard look at public buildings. They called for a thorough review.
A review involving whom?
Well, crucially, involving accessibility experts and community representatives, bringing in that lived experience,
That's key.
It really is. The court's frustration was, well, you could feel it. They pointed out missed deadlines for accessibility, even with laws already on the books.
Right. So these aren't just broad goals then. The CPWD directive, what exactly is it asking for? What are the specifics?
It's quite precise, actually. It mandates ramps, but specifically ramps with gentle slopes, tactile paths for people with visual impairments, clearly marked accessible toilets, automatic doors.
Okay.
It covers all buildings maintained by CPWD. It's aiming for a comprehensive, truly barrier-free environment.
And it feels like this isn't just, a one-off thing. Is it part of a bigger strategy, maybe?
Oh, definitely. You can connect this directly to another really significant move just a few months back in May of this year.
What was that?
The center announced a 4% reservation in government housing specifically for PWDs.
Ah, housing too. Okay.
Yes, and that was quickly followed by orders from the Directorate of Estates, they're under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, MOUA, to make all central government residences barrier-free.
So it's like connecting the dots from accessible home.
Exactly. To accessible offices, creating a whole accessible ecosystem, really.
That connection is critical. And expanding on that, why does this link between homes and offices matter so much? Let's try an analogy. Imagine driving a car, but there are no proper roads. Just, bumpy fields, potholes everywhere, no signs.
Right. That's a good one.
That's kind of what navigating public spaces can feel like for many PWDs. So this new CPWD push, it's like finally paving those roads, isn't it? Making the journey smooth, dignified for everyone.
That analogy absolutely nails the urgency. And when we talk about barrier-free, it's so much more than just a buzzword. Let's break down what it really means.
Okay.
Simply put, it's designing an environment where the obstacles, physical, informational, even attitudinal ones, are just gone, removed. So everyone can use spaces independently with dignity.
Like a playground where all kids can play together.
Exactly like that. No one left on the sidelines. It's about universal usability.
Okay, building on that, let's dig into these barriers,
You're-
starting with the physical ones, the obvious ones, like stairs without ramps.
Stairs without ramps, narrow doorways, a wheelchair can't get through, counters that are way too high.
Yeah.
And the solutions are becoming pretty standard now. Ramps, yes, but with that gentle slope, no steeper than 1.12. That's key for safety and ease of use.
1 in 12. Got it.
Then you have elevators with Braille buttons and voice announcements. Wide corridors thinked at least 1.5 meters across. And those tactile warning strips, the bumpy tiles that guide visually impaired people.
Right, the textured tiles. But it's not just about the physical stuff, is it? Informational barriers can be just as limiting.
Oh, absolutely. Think about signs only in print that immediately exclude someone who can't see them, or government websites that don't work with screen readers.
Which locks people out of essential services online.
Precisely. So the solutions there involve things like Braille signage, audio guides in museums or stations, even apps that describe your surroundings using voice, making information accessible to everyone.
And then there are the trickier ones, attitudinal barriers.
Yeah, those are the toughest. They're rooted in mindsets, aren't they?
Yeah.
Assumptions like, oh, PWDs can't contribute fully, or they always need help.
Preconceptions.
Exactly. Education and awareness are just crucial here, moving from sort of pity to genuine empathy and understanding.
And importantly, these solutions, these features, they aren't just nice ideas, are they? They're actually mandated now.
That's right. They stem directly from India's harmonized guidelines and standards for universal accessibility. It's a comprehensive national blueprint, MoUSho, rolled out back in 2021.
Harmonized guidelines, okay.
And these guidelines clearly spell out things like ramp gradients, door widths, features that must be included in public buildings now. They're non-negotiable for new builds or major renovations.
So, with that in mind, here's a challenge for you listening.
Yeah.
Start looking at your everyday world differently. Next time you're in a mall, an office, anywhere public, become an accessibility spot checker.
Yeah, do it.
Look for that ramp. Is there an accessible restroom? Is there Braille signage? If it's missing, well, you're seeing a barrier in action. And hopefully with this new CPWD push, we'll see fewer and fewer of those.
We should. And, this whole conversation in India, it's not brand new. This journey towards inclusion, it has a history. It's been evolving. Efforts started way back post-independence, but the real momentum that picked up in the 90s.
Right, the 1990s. And the Persons with Disabilities Act of 1995 often comes up as a key moment. What was so important about that act, and maybe what were its limitations?
Well, the 95 Act was definitely a milestone, no doubt. It recognized 7 types of disabilities formally, but critically, its perspective was still largely through a welfare lens.
Welfare, not rights.
Kind of. More about provisions like education and employment quotas, seen as welfare measures rather than fundamental rights. The big shift, the profound change in perspective, came when India ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2007.
Ah, the UN Convention.
Yes, that reframed disability entirely, not as a problem to be managed, but as a human rights issue. And that perspective paved the way for the real game changer, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, the RPWD Act, almost 10 years later.
So the 2016 RPWD Act, that's the one that really shifted the ground.
Absolutely. It was huge. It expanded the recognized disabilities from 7 to 21 categories.
21, wow.
Yeah, including conditions previously overlooked, like acid attack survivors, Parkinson's, intellectual disabilities. It wasn't just numbers. It was a societal acknowledgement. And crucially, it mandated barrier-free access across the board, buildings, transport, ICT. It cemented disability as a human rights issue in law.
And building on that legal framework, there was the Accessible India campaign, Sugami Bharat Abhiyan, launched in 2015. How has that campaign actually translated these laws into, stuff we can see and use?
The progress there is tangible, especially by now, August 2025. We're talking over 50,000 buses, upgraded low floors, ramps, more than 1,800 public buildings retrofitted.
That's significant.
These are real changes making a difference. But, history also shows us challenges. Delays, like the court pointed out recently, they aren't new. They reflect ongoing hurdles like funding, enforcement.
Practical realities.
Exactly. The implementation struggle is real.
So when we talk about these changes, who are we actually talking about? How many people in India live with disabilities? What do the numbers tell us?
Well, the official number from the 2011 census was 2.21% of the population. That's about 26.8 million people.
Okay.
But, and this is important, experts estimate the true number could be much higher, maybe 40 million, maybe even up to 90 million.
Why such a big gap?
Largely because the old definitions used in the census missed a lot. Invisible disabilities, chronic illnesses, mental health conditions, they weren't fully captured. The data shows locomotor disabilities are the most common, followed by visual, hearing, and intellectual impairments. And rates are higher in rural areas.
Suggesting links to poverty, healthcare access.
Precisely, systemic issues. And a recent study from 2025 using NSS data adds more layers. It showed access to support services is still quite patchy.
Like what?
Literacy rate for PWDs only around 62%. Unemployment roughly double the national average. And a really tough reality for women with disabilities facing that double discrimination, gender, and disability bias.
These aren't just numbers on a page, are they? They represent real lives, real struggles.
Absolutely not just numbers. It's a child with a hearing impairment may be missing out on school because there's no sign language support. It's a veteran who lost a limb struggling to get into a job center because of stairs. Barrier-free infrastructure isn't just about convenience. It fundamentally unlocks doors to education, to jobs, to just participating fully in society.
And there's an economic argument, too, isn't there? Accessibility isn't just a cost. It's actually an investment.
A powerful one. Studies suggest that for every rupee spent on making things accessible, the return can be as high as 10 rupees.
10 rupees, how?
Through increased productivity, tapping into a huge pool of talent, creating a more inclusive market, it unlocks human potential, which boosts the whole economy. It's smart economics.
Okay, so the vision is clear, the laws are there, the economic case is strong, but there are still roadblocks, right? What are the big challenges?
Oh, definitely. Persistent challenges. Cost is a big one. Retrofitting old buildings is just plain expensive.
And budgets are tight.
Exactly. New projects often get priority over fixing existing accessibility issues. Then there's uneven enforcement. Central guidelines exist, sure, but how they're applied can vary wildly.
Like the difference between a fancy mall in Delhi and a rural post office.
Precisely. Night and day sometimes. Awareness gaps are another hurdle. Some architects, some builders, they still treat accessibility as an optional extra, an add-on, not something fundamental to good design.
Instead of building it in from the start.
Right. Universal design thinking isn't always there. And the digital divide is huge. So many government websites still fail basic accessibility tests.
Despite the CPWD Act mandating web compliance.
Despite the mandate, which locks millions out of essential online services. And then back to those attitudinal hurdles.
The mindset issues again.
Yeah, stigma can make people hesitant to even ask for their rights. And some officials might still see accessibility as, a burden or an extra favor, not a core responsibility. Even after a Supreme Court judgment in 2024 pushing for strict standards, gaps persist.
And transport, you mentioned, is still a difficult area.
Transport remains a sore point for many. There's a 2025 draft framework proposing improvements, reserved seats, audio announcements on trains, but the actual rollout is slow.
But these challenges, they could also be seen as opportunities for improvement.
Absolutely. Stronger monitoring is key, like the CCPD taking that proactive role. And community involvement is vital. Tools like the Sugamya Harat app are great for this.
How does the app work?
Users can literally report barriers they encounter, snap a photo, log the location. It helps authorities track issues and hopefully fix them. It empowers people to be part of the solution.
That's clever. Crowdsourcing accessibility fixes. But amidst the challenges, it's crucial we also spotlight the successes. Where is progress really shining?
There are definite wins. The Sugamya Harat Abhiyan, the Accessible India campaign, now 10 years running, it has transformed landscapes. Over 1,800 buildings retrofitted isn't nothing.
Including some really iconic places.
Yeah, like the Taj Mahal now has wheelchair paths, tactile models, major airports, railway stations. They're getting upgrades.
And transport, you mentioned buses.
Over 50,000 accessible buses is a huge step forward. Low floors, ramps, making public transport viable for many more people. And metro systems in cities like Chennai, Bengaluru, they're often leading the way. Elevators, Braille maps, staff trained in basic sign language. That's real, tangible progress.
And the digital side, that app you mentioned.
The Sugamya Harat app, over 83,000 downloads by mid-2025. That shows people are using it, engaging with it. It's like that crowdsourced map for accessibility we talked about.
These aren't just abstract achievements, though. They change lives. Can you share maybe an example?
Definitely. Think of Ravi, a wheelchair user in Kolkata we heard about. Before, getting into his local municipal office meant being carried upstairs. Imagine that.
Humiliating.
Deeply. Now, with a new ramp installed thanks to retrofitting efforts, he just rolls in independently, does his business with dignity. That's the difference it makes.
Or Priya in Delhi, who's visually impaired.
Right. She now commutes to work confidently using the audio cues in the revamped metro stations. These aren't isolated stories. They represent thousands experiencing newfound independence. Events like the Sugamya Yatra for International Wheelchair Day this year really showcase this people testing Delhi's metro accessibility themselves.
It shows the momentum is real. Now, these efforts in India are commendable, but how do they stack up globally? What can India learn from other countries?
That's a great question. Looking abroad, you see different approaches. Sweden, for example, champions design for all.
Design for all.
Yeah, it means integrating accessibility right from the initial blueprint stage, not as an afterthought, the result. Cities where PWDs can navigate much more independently, their public transport accessibility is around 95%.
95%. Wow, that's impressive. What about places like the U.S.? They had the ADA quite early.
Right, the Americans with Disabilities Act from 1990. It set crucial standards that India's laws echo in many ways. Think about curb cuts, those sloped bits on sidewalks. That became widespread because of the ADA. It shows the power of strong legislation early on.
So legislation matters, design philosophy matters.
Yeah.
Any other models?
Japan is interesting for its tech-focused robotic suits for mobility assistance, things like that. And universal design is just the norm in their buildings. Singapore has a very strict building code with hefty fines for non-compliance.
High compliance rates there.
Over 90% of key buildings are accessible. So what can India borrow? Maybe more public-private partnerships like Japan's tech collaborations, maybe embedding inclusion education earlier like Sweden. Global benchmarks are useful. India shows the commitment, accelerating the execution is the next step.
And to make this even more concrete, let's bring in some voices from the ground, the people directly impacted, and the experts working in the field.
Yes, hearing those perspectives is vital.
We heard from Anita, a teacher from Hyderabad with a hearing impairment. She shared how before the 2016 Act, schools often just ignored her needs. But now, with guidelines pushing for inclusive tech, she uses captioning software. She says it's truly empowering, allowing her to teach effectively.
That's fantastic. And Curran, a student in rural Bihar with a locomotor disability.
Right. He talked about how village offices used to be all stairs, impossible for him.
Yeah.
But the campaign retrofits added ramps.
Made a direct difference.
Huge. He said now he can apply for scholarships himself without needing help. He described it as like gaining wings. It's these personal impacts that really show the power of policy.
Absolutely. And we also spoke to an accessibility auditor, someone who actually checks these buildings.
What was their take?
They noted that while thousands of sites are being audited and fixed, which is good, the real lasting change happens when communities demand it, when people actively participate and hold authorities accountable.
So it comes back to people, power, community advocacy.
Exactly. These voices remind us policies only truly come alive through people fighting for them and using them.
Looking ahead then, what's next on this journey? What does the future hold?
Well, accountability is going to be absolutely key. This new CPWD directive is a strong signal, yes, but making it real requires clear timelines, dedicated funding, real money allocated, and robust ways to track progress and hold units accountable.
Was there enough focus on this in the recent budget?
Budget 2025 did call for more disability inclusion, but some advocates felt it, fell short on specifics and dedicated funding for accessibility mandates. That remains a challenge.
What about data? You mentioned the census issue earlier.
Better data is definitely on the horizon. The upcoming 2026-27 census is expected to use broader, more inclusive definitions of disability.
That should give a clearer picture.
Hopefully, yes. A much clearer picture of the actual scale and types of disability across India. And that better data is crucial for targeting efforts effectively. You can't fix what you can't properly measure.
In technology's role, will that continue to grow?
Oh, undoubtedly. Tech will be a huge ally. Think AI for real-time sign language translation, smart city infrastructure with sensor-based navigation for the visually impaired. Lots of potential there.
And education, training the next generation of builders and designers.
That's critical too. Reforms are aiming to embed universal design principles right into architectural and engineering training. So future buildings are just born accessible.
Rather than needing expensive retrofits later.
Exactly. It's far more efficient and effective in the long run. And while big challenges remain, climate change impacts accessibility, rapid urbanization creates new barriers. Campaigns like Sugamya Bharat are evolving, now under a broader barrier-free environment scheme, trying to keep that momentum going.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the key takeaway seems to be a barrier-free India isn't some optional extra, is it?
Not at all. It's an absolute necessity for a truly vibrant, equitable nation where everyone can participate.
We've journeyed through the history, looked at the hurdles, celebrated the wins, the heroes, and glimpsed the future. From that urgent CPWD directive now, back to the RPWD Act. The pieces do seem to be falling into place.
They are. But change never happens in a vacuum, does it? It needs all of us. It needs you listening. How will knowing this change how you look at the spaces you move through every day?
That's the question. What one barrier will you actively look for now? Maybe even ask about getting it removed in your own community, your workplace.
Imagine that India, where every single public space genuinely welcomes everyone, not just some, where participation isn't a daily struggle, but a given.
That's the vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
Powerful, inclusive, and maybe with sustained effort from everyone, it's not just a vision, it feels within reach.
It does. The question is, what new steps can we all take, starting today, to help build that tomorrow?
This has been about more than just the facts and figures, hopefully. It's about sparking some enthusiasm, some action, for that better tomorrow.
Exactly. Knowledge gain. Now pass it on. Share what you've learned. Because ultimately, in a truly inclusive world, everyone wins.